What's up, guys? It's your boy Zowoki back with another crime video, which is going to be Chad Doreman, whatever his name is. I don't really care about his name. I just care that he gets the criminal justice how do I want to say this? He gets the punishment that he deserves, because this man is the one that executed his 3 sons and is now facing the death penalty. Thank the Lord. But will it go through? We're going to be watching the update of this case. So with that being said, grab a chair, get comfortable. Also, before we go any further, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel by hitting that wiper icon down the bottom right. Hit that bell icon next to it. So I do post videos like this one. You guys will get that little ring notification that I've posted that video. And then you guys can watch, comment, like, and share. And again, I thank you guys so very much for that continued love and support that you guys show on this channel every single day. And I can't thank you guys enough. Keep doing what you guys are doing, and we'll be on a road to 100K. With that being said, we're going to be watching Court TV, so let's take a look at what's the update. If I put the volume on, there we go.
But first, this. It was the type of murder scene that law enforcement never forgets. 3 young boys, all brothers and all gone. Shot and killed execution style. One attempting to run away, but to no avail, as the killer hunted him down. What would drive any human to commit such an act? To take 3 absolute...
If there was a reason to use the death penalty, this would be it.
Absolutely innocent lives in such a violent manner at their own home. But this alleged killer was no stranger. It was someone they knew, someone they loved, and someone they trusted, their own father. Now this father is facing the death penalty, but is claiming legal insanity, saying he did not appreciate the wrongfulness of his conduct as he chased down and executed his 3 little boys. It's a defense we've seen many times, but usually with moms who kill their children. Mothers like Andrea Yates, who drowned her children, or Deanna Laney, who smashed her children's skulls with a rock.
What is wrong with people? Like, what are you doing?
Is there a difference in the way our system treats mothers versus fathers? We'll bring in our experts as we investigate the tragic deaths of 7-year-old Clayton, 4-year-old Hunter, and 3-year-old Chase. I'm Benny Politan. Thanks for being with us tonight. This is such an incredibly tragic story. It is so sad. It is so heartbreaking. And at the same time, it'll get you extremely angry.
Oh, I'm angry already.
We're talking about 3 little boys, brothers. Could they be any cuter? I don't think so. 7 years old, 4 years old, 3 years old, Clayton, Hunter, and Chase.
This man murdered his kids where I would go to the ends of the earth for my kids. And this guy just took his kids away.
Little guys who should have had an amazing life growing up together. When you're 3 boys like that and you're almost the same age, it is just absolutely amazing. Yes, it's chaotic, but it is awesome. And they should have had an awesome life. Their lives were taken.
Go to school.
All by one man. There he is.
Get wives.
Their father. Let me read to you.
Have children of their own.
What allegedly happened here before he took those lives.
He's pissed at his
The
wife.
defendant obtained a Bible and was walking around the house with it. While walking with the Bible, the defendant was mumbling, "Chad knows what's right." He then began to get into the gun safe, which was located in the master bedroom. His wife told the defendant that he was scaring her, that she didn't like what he was doing, and that she was going to call his parents. The defendant responded saying that he was just kidding and playing around. The defendant decided that he would lie down in the master bedroom. After he initially laid down, the defendant got out of bed got into the gun safe, removing a Marlin Model 22 rifle and loaded magazine. What happened next was horrific. Absolutely horrific. You think about what a young boy looks up to his dad and what he sees. He sees his hero. He sees the most important person in his life. I want to be like him. I want to be like my dad. After the gunshots, police responded. Their body cameras were on. Let's take a look at what happened.
First time I watched it, I cried.
Where's he at?
Shooter's on the porch.
Get him right here. Right here. You got him on the porch.
We've asked. That's the last place we've been told.
You show me your hands now! Stand up and walk towards us! Stand up now! Walk towards us! Show us your hands now! Stand up! Stand up!
The black square is where his children were at.
Stand up! Stand up now! Stand up! Stand up!
The stage and air crew are going to go ahead and fly whenever any units can advise.
Get your hands out of here.
72.
Cover 21. Send the air.
There's confirmed that there's people that need first aid, and that's the shooter who's not complying. They need to take care of the
I got it.
victims. They have to shoot him and shoot him.
And man, I ain't trying to hurt nobody. I'm completely sober. Never did drugs a day in my life.
21. Get the EMS over here.
Well, I did drugs with a flip, but I don't do drugs now. I'm sober. I'm not trying to fight you.
63.
Get your butt inside. Gatlin, get your butt inside.
We on primary?
Now.
29, we got 3 kids down.
3 kids down, 16 to be tough.
Gatlin.
63, we're 21. Have EMS respond over here.
You're clear, they're being advised. Robert 34, just started mass casualty response. 63, do you want them to respond to the Laurel Lindale address? Where exactly do you need them?
We're right in the front yard.
You took my life from me! My life!
What are you doing, man?
Hey, are you copying all this?
Can I roll over? I ain't gonna hurt you. I ain't gonna hurt nobody.
You got anything on you?
No, I ain't got nothing, man. Phone, that's it. I ain't mad. I ain't
He
nothing.
acts like nothing's wrong.
Just make sure that dog don't come out. I don't think he'll bite you. Just don't reach for him and try to grab him and pet him.
All right.
He won't bite you.
What's going on, man?
Nothing. Can I stand up? It's kind of uncomfortable.
I'm gonna get
I ain't
you
gonna
here
do
in a
nothing. I ain't running away. You can do whatever you want.
I don't give a crap if you're uncomfortable.
Here. You the only one else inside the house?
What?
You the only one else inside the house?
Yeah.
Sit down right here.
My daughter, she ran over to the fire department.
Sit down.
It's my stepdaughter.
Put him in the cage.
This is real.
I want to bring in our special guest, get a little more information about this story, this case. Breaking news reporter with the Cincinnati Enquirer, Cameron Knight, is with us. Cameron, thank you so much for joining us. I wanted to start with the reaction and the impact of this story on the community when all of this happened.
Claremont County, where this occurred, is a little bit west of Cincinnati. It's a pretty rural county. And these boys were all baseball players. And they all were out in the community playing baseball with each other on different teams for their different ages. And it really rocked the community out there. The sister who you hear mentioned in the body camera you just played was a softball player too. They seemed like a really big baseball family, and it was they love baseball out there. and all these boys played, and it just really shook them. And this killing occurred just a few months after another really tragic murder-suicide situation in that county pretty nearby as well. And I think the combination of those two things really shook people up bad in there. It was really tragic.
Was there any history here? Do we know what was going on inside that household and perhaps the defendant's background? Was there anything that would even hint that something like this could possibly happen?
We spoke to some neighbors and some residents out there who, nothing crazy and out of the ordinary. And a lot of the details of that are still very much under wraps because of the nature of this case and it being a death penalty case. They have not put out very many details at all. One of the neighbors said, like, oh, they are outside playing ball all the time. The dad was out there showing them how to fix cars and just having fun out in their yard where there were toys all over the yard, bikes and all kinds of things in the front yard there. And but another neighbor said, oh, they were always yelling at each other or having problems. So it's very, very preliminary and unclear. And the wife who survived and the daughter who survived are understandably not speaking out about what's going on. They don't want to compromise the investigation.
Yeah, hopefully they're getting some counseling and help as well, surviving that, but witnessing all of that. Procedurally, where are we in this case? What's the status?
So it's been over a year as this has gone on. Obviously, he was arrested the day.
What still shocks me is this one took over a year, but then you look at cases like I say, Chris Watts took days, where we thought it was going to take years.
Of the killings, and there has been a lot that has happened since then. His confession to police officers in the interview after this happened was thrown out of court because he had asked for a lawyer and indicated he wanted a lawyer 2 times during the police interview, and they sort of didn't get him a lawyer right away. So his confession was thrown out. Then there is, under Ohio law, there is a law that says if you are suffering from a serious mental illness at the time of the offense, you can have a hearing. It's called a SMI hearing, serious mental illness hearing, which will take the death penalty off the table for the trial. So that's where we're at right now, is that they are preparing to go to this hearing, which is set to take place over the course of 3 days.
He doesn't have
so
mental
pretty
illness.
Giant for a hearing that's happening in the middle of a case. And that hearing
Do you guys think he has mental illness, or he just was a douchebag? Honestly, he don't have serious mental issues.
Determine whether or not he was suffering from a serious mental illness at the time of these killings, and it will determine whether this continues to be a death penalty case or not.
Big
that
moment.
Hearing again, that hearing is scheduled to start Monday.
Okay, Cameron Knight from the Cincinnati Enquirer, thank you so much. Appreciate your time and your reporting on all of this. By the way, folks, as you know, you can see right here, we are keeping an eye on deliberations in Florida in the Black Swan murder trial. Court TV legal correspondent Kelly Craft joins us from the courthouse with an update. Kelly, this father took the lives of his 3 children. Will this be a death penalty case? We'll bring in our experts next.
I'm praying for death penalty. I know there's people out there that don't like the death penalty, but he murdered his
I can't go into a whole lot of facts, all right, because this is a death penalty case, and my goal is to have this man executed for slaughtering these 3 little boys.
With how complicated the death penalty is in Ohio right now, and how much extra work it adds to your office, why was it important for you to seek this?
I'll let the facts speak for themselves. He slaughtered his 3 children. in the most brutal fashion you could imagine, as I mentioned in court. The extra work is no extra work at all. It's what we do.
He killed his sons in execution style. This man should be executed the same way.
This merits our attention, our devotion, and our effort.
For the Claremont County prosecutor, it's clear this is a death penalty case. This man executed his 3 young sons, one after the other. One of them he had to chase down and hunt down. There he is. But the question is, how will this play out? What will be the issues in this case? What's happening in Ohio? They have special laws. I need some experts to help me. So joining me, the executive director of the Atlantic Center for Capital Representation, death penalty expert Mark Bookman is with us. And joining us in Cleveland, Ohio, he's the guy I go to. There's a big case in Ohio. Got to go to criminal defense attorney Ian Friedman. Great to have you both here. Ian, let me begin with you. I want to understand Ohio and how this is going to work. There's this SMI, serious mental illness hearing that's going to be happening. What are the issues? What are the standards? How does a judge figure this out?
So good to see you, Vinny. I'm sorry it's always with a tragic matter, but here in Ohio, so there's an opportunity to be heard. The law states that if someone was significantly impaired, they didn't have the capacity to exercise rational judgment. Really,
he was talking just fine. When the cops put him down, he was talking like, "Oh, I'm not gonna hurt you. Don't worry, but can I get up because it's kind of uncomfortable." He knew exactly what he was doing.
couldn't appreciate the wrongfulness, which also sounds like an NGRI, not guilty by reason of insanity. But if you have that hearing and a judge determines by preponderance of the evidence, so not beyond reasonable doubt, but that the lower standard, that person really couldn't understand the nature of their conduct, they're exempt. They cannot be tried and subject to the death penalty. So life without parole, yes.
No.
Death penalty, no.
And as you said, it's similar to the actual defense. So, Mark, as we look at this case and we look at this guy, I mean, no rational person is going to do what he did. But that's not the standard, right? It's not about being rational. It's a much different standard when we talk about legal insanity and when we talk about what is necessary to try to prove a death case here.
So I think Ian, properly phrased it. You're right. No rational person would do this. So you almost start with the presumption that someone, is pretty seriously mentally ill for doing something like this. So Ohio is actually kind of ahead of the curve in the sense that the serious mental illness bar of the death penalty is very consistent with other bars that we see nationally. For instance, we don't execute juveniles. We don't execute people who are intellectually disabled. We don't do that is because they are less culpable. And so someone who is seriously mentally ill is less culpable in the same way. So Ohio has passed, what I would say is a progressive statute that recognizes the lack of culpability for someone who is so obviously seriously mentally ill, to me.
So, Ian, the public reaction to all of this obviously was outrage. There was sadness, there was outrage, there was anger. It's all jumbled together. We heard it from the Claremont County prosecutor as well. We always think about the death penalty, and we think of the worst of the worst. And you think, well, what would the worst of the worst do? Well, the worst of the worst would hunt down and kill these 3 beautiful children. So what are your thoughts here about the death penalty in a case like this?
In a case like this is really hard because if you just take the conduct in a vacuum, there's nothing.
How is it hard? He executed his children. So execute him.
More imaginably worse than this.
This wasn't by accident.
But there's no escaping the fact that part of this process has to include an assessment of the defendant's mental state. That's just, it goes part and parcel to the case, right? You have the act and then you also have to have the mental.
I'm tired of people. Again, it's up in the air for you guys' opinions and so forth like that. But if you commit a crime like this with the intent to destroy, murder, annihilate, whatever have you, you should be put to death. People are doing this all the time because they know they can get away with it at most times, get life in prison, maybe half their life is gone. They're like, oh, they'll get a slap on the hand and then, oh, I'll be out in 25 plus or 30 years. And some of them are 20 years old, so they get out when they're 50, and they could possibly reoffend. They could possibly acquainted to society, but make these people a how you call it, an example, and you'll start seeing less murder. It might work, but people are just so comfortable with murder.
State. And so if we were only to judge it just on the conduct and didn't have to look at the why, well, of course, this would be an easy decision for anyone, any person of rational mind. But we have to figure out the why here. What caused this? Where was his mind? And this is an incredibly difficult case because on the one hand, jurors are outraged. There has to be accountability. Just like you said, Vinny, who could possibly do this? But then jurors also...
So he could be in prison, eat his 3 meals, possibly get commissary, be able to talk to people, his parents, free health care, but his kids are in the ground and buried and stuff like that. Really?
Also want to believe that no one could be that evil to do this without some sort of something wrong, as they would say, some sort of mental disease. And so these cases really come down to an examination, an exploration of the defendant's mind. So it's going to be really expert intensive. Both sides are going to be bringing experts to the table to talk about what was going on up here. And then the jury's going to have to decide if it's going to get to a jury. It's just whether or not it's going to be for death or life. But they're going to have to decide whether or not, how the mental state came into play.
Mark, we have about 30 seconds left here. I want to give you the final word on this. And what would you say to the public, in a case where everyone looks at this and says, this guy is the worst of the worst?
So I think, once again, Ian kind of nailed it. It's not just the worst of the worst crimes. It's the worst of the worst crimes coupled with, for lack of a better word, and I don't like to say this, the worst of the worst people. And when someone is seriously mentally ill, like this man, then I think most people would say the lack of culpability takes him out of the framework of the worst people. He's done the worst of the worst crimes, but maybe he's not the worst of the worst people.
Oh, yeah,
you guys are the best of the best. Mark Bookman, Ian Freeman, giving us great insight in a really difficult issue, a difficult case. Thank you both so much. When we come back, we'll approach this from a psychological aspect, look at some other cases like Andrea Yates. Are men treated differently than women, moms versus dads, in cases like this?
Stop being so, their rights need to be protected. If you murder somebody, your rights should be gone.
Can you tell how many people have been shot?
I think 2 children.
What did the female say to you? And she says that her stepfather is killing everybody in her house.
Show us your hands now. Stand the up.
The stage and the air going to go ahead and fly whenever he gets inside.
Get your hand.
He was their world. He was their guardian. And he executed them in cold blood. We know that from his admission. He planned the events of this day.
He knew what he was doing. He planned it. It was premeditated. He shouldn't have a bond. He should never see daylight again.
Judge, he has committed one of the most monstrous, craven, cowardly acts that will ever be our misfortune to see.
The same way he did his son is the way he needs to go out.
Exactly. Amen.
He's not the first, he won't be the last parent charged with taking the lives of his children. We've covered a lot of these stories through the years, and many times the defense is legal insanity. someone who cannot distinguish right from wrong, someone who doesn't appreciate the wrongfulness of their conduct. And that's exactly what's going on with this Ohio, and I use the term loosely, father, because he was at the time that he pulled out that .22 rifle and took the lives of those 3 little boys. As I said, not the first to be charged. So I want to go through some of the history here to give us some context for where we are in the case. Let's begin with Chelsea Thornton. Chelsea Thornton, fatally shot her 3-year-old son, drowned her 4-year-old daughter.
Okay, was in a depression-fueled psychotic episode. I've had depression, or I have depression, but I don't want to take my family out.
Psychiatrists found that she was in a, quote, depression-fueled psychotic episode that left her unable to distinguish right from wrong, the legal standard in insanity. She was eventually found not guilty by reason of insanity.
Are you kidding?
We all know Andrea Yates. We remember this case, one of the highest profile stories of this nature. Drowned
5 children under the age of 7 should be put to death by drowning.
5 young children, Noah, John, Paul, Luke, and Mary, all under the age of 7. This is back in 2002. Had been hospitalized multiple times for suicide attempts and self-harm. Exhibited signs of postpartum depression, postpartum psychosis, and schizophrenia leading up to the killings. Was known to also feverishly read the Bible during that time. In a retrial, Andrea Yates was found not guilty by reason of insanity. Another case that was also in Texas, just like Andrea Yates, Deanna Laney took her 8-year-old son, Joshua, 6-year-old son, Luke, out to the yard and used a large rock to crush their skulls. This is in 2003. Also attempted to kill with a stone her 14-month-old son, Aaron, in his crib. He survived. She said that God instructed her to kill her children. Mental health experts from both sides found that she had psychotic delusions, leaving her unable to know right from wrong. Deanna Laney was found not guilty by reason of insanity. Susan Smith from South Carolina drowned her 3-year-old son, Michael, and 14-month-old Alexander in a lake in 1994, lied to police telling them her children were kidnapped during a carjacking. Defense experts diagnosed her with dependent personality disorder and major depression. The state argued in favor of the death penalty, but she was found guilty and was sentenced to life in prison. Jeremiah Wright beheaded his disabled
I just hate our judicial system. Like, this is beheaded and disabled. His 7-year-old son was found not guilty because of the reason of insanity.
7-year-old son in 2011.
Oh my gosh.
Mental health experts said Wright believed his son was no longer real and had been replaced with a CPR dummy. Jeremiah Wright was found not guilty by reason of insanity. Timothy Jones Jr.
Oh my gosh, let's keep
killed
going.
his 5 children, ages 1 to 8, in his mobile home in 2014. Later admitted that he forced his son to exercise until death, later killing the other 4 in a panic. The case file featured a history of physical abuse. The court rejected his plea of insanity. Timothy Jones Jr. is currently on death row.
But why does it take years to do
And
this?
one of the most horrific ones, John Battaglia. shot his 9- and 6-year-old daughters to death while forcing the mother to listen during a phone call. Prosecutors say he murdered the children in an act of revenge against his ex-wife. The defense argued against the death penalty, citing his bipolar disorder. The jury convicted him in 19 minutes and later sentenced him to death, and John Battaglia was in fact executed. So, let's dive into this a little bit. Is there a difference in the way men versus women, moms versus dad are treated? Is there a difference? Joining us tonight, forensic psychiatrist, trial expert, witness, and columnist, Dr. Carol Lieberman. Also with us, a clinical psychologist who's interviewed more than 80 murderers, including the Oxford school shooter, and Shonda Vander Ark. Dr. Colin King is with us. Great to have you both here. Dr. Carol Lieberman, your thoughts. Men versus women, mom versus dad, the way they're treated, the way they're perceived in our system of justice.
Well, you know, women are perceived, it's perceived as being worse for women, that for a woman to kill her child because she's supposed to be having the maternal instinct and so on. But on the other hand, a lot of women who end up killing their children have postpartum depression. So that acts actually as a buffer in terms of getting them, you know, making it easier to get an insanity defense. Men kill their children in more, just like, you know, suicide for themselves. They kill in general in more violent kinds of ways, whereas women most, you know, do it in more like drowning or like asphyxia or something like that, a quieter kind of way. I think, you know, we do need to, there does need to be concession made for women who do have postpartum depression. You know, in the case that we're talking about, that is a very complicated case because there are so many things that go into it. I'm sure we're going to talk about that more. But you know, in dividing men and women and so on, it's not really so easy to just make it whether it's a man or a woman. It really has to do with the complicated story, how you can prove what their psyche was.
Dr. Colin King, I want to put something up on the screen here. Insanity defense with women. No crime is more likely to succeed with an insanity defense than a mother who has killed her children. No crime more likely to succeed with an insanity defense than a mother who has killed her children. What are your thoughts, Dr. Colin King, about men, mothers, men versus women, mothers versus fathers in cases where children have been killed?
So thanks for having me on, Vinny. So the legal standard is the same. So it does not discriminate between men and women. However, the perception is different. In the case of women, we instinctively go towards depressive episodes or maybe psychotic episodes or maybe postpartum depression. And in some cases, that is true. When it comes to men, we sort of lean more towards violence. We use words such as heinous crimes, brutal. All of these descriptors are used when it comes to men. At the end of the day, Vinny, what we need to do, and as a psychologist, what we're doing more and more, we're starting to look at the brains of these killers. What are the motivating factors? You know, assess depression, assess obsessive compulsive disorder, assess empathy. And now with the advancement of science and technology, we're actually in a great position to start looking at the brains of these people and coming up with some answers that hope.
You would think by now we would have a whole bunch of information to tell us exactly who we can find out if could be or do in the future
hopefully can prevent some of the future acts of violence, either based on aggression or depression or whatever term we want to give it.
Dr. Carol Lieberman, I want to put something else up on the screen, which is the sentencing disparities that are out there in moms versus dad, men versus women. The average sentence for women convicted of filicide in the United States was 17 years. Fathers are likely to receive much longer sentences than mothers who kill their children. Fathers are also more likely to be sentenced to execution than mothers. Why do you think this is?
Well, you know, it's kind of, there are some contradictory things. In one side, it's so hard, society, jurors don't want to believe that a mother could do this to her child because, as I was saying before, because of the maternal instinct, you know, but then that goes to, well, then she must have been crazy. You know, also, if you look at how, I think things are going to be changing, because today, fathers, if they don't want to be fathers or don't want to have their children with them and so on, they more easily just leave the family. You know, I think that these statistics are going to be changing significantly over the years.
All right, Dr. Carol Lieberman, Dr. Colin King.
So with that being said, guys, on this note of this case, do you agree that Chad Doreman, whatever how you pronounce his name again, should be put to death, or should you think that he should be sentenced to life? I am, again, literally sick and tired of hearing people murdering their kids, murdering kids, being predators to kids. It just disgusts me, and the people that do the crime should not do their time. They should be doing it how they did it to them. If somebody beheaded somebody, they would get beheaded. If somebody ran into you with a car, you get run into a car. I mean, that's why we have so much people in prison lately, and sometimes they're overhoused. They kick people out that are less offenders and so forth, but we pay all into that's part of our taxes right there. And we're letting these guys eat 3 square meals a day, free health care, free, don't have to pay taxes or whatever have you on their income because they're working under the state. It's just disgusting that we're housing these people that committed these heinous, disgusting crimes, and we're just putting them into a cell where they can sleep, eat, enjoy light if they have it next to them. They should be scared. They should be punished. I'm tired of it, to be honest. I try to be a good father, a good spouse, a good man every single day. Why can't they? I just don't get it. Comment your guys' thoughts down below. Hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe, and we will see you guys in the next video. Peace.